Well, folks, just thought I'd upload this video of how I make fitted wardrobes. This is a wardrobe I made recently for myself. This is me just programming the software I use for cutlass, so you get minimal waste from your sheets. Those sheets are 2.8 by 2100, so they're pretty awkward to handle by yourself, but I have a trolley there that's the same height as the table saw, so you can just slide it on across. I think there was 4 sheets in total in this of MFC, which is melamine face chipboard. My normal stockist didn't have any MRMDF, which I use for my doors and stuff, so I had to get them off a different supplier. These carts were designed by Derek Barrett. He's a cabinet maker from Ireland. Go check out his Instagram page, Derek Barrett Design. He's got some fine work. This is my edge bander. It's a hot melt edge bander. It's a OAV 350M. It's a great machine. I like to just try and clean as I go, so I just blow out any surface dust from cutting. This is me just edging all the door or the gables and tops and bottoms. My old edge bander was a hot air one, and it was just a nightmare of a machine, so it was. All this getting stuck and stuff with the tape. But this one is much better, so it is. Can handle like small components like you see there. Drawer edges and stuff. Fronts and backs. Just setting up the router table here to rebate a groove into the gables for the LED lights you'll see later on. The first part, putting your back to your bottom, is always the most awkward, but once you get one screw in it, it's fine. There's a lot of guys on YouTube that use biscuits and screws and glue and stuff, and I just don't see the point of it. Screws are perfectly good enough to hold it all together. I make these on a weekly basis, and I've never ever had a call back from a customer. Just using a spacer there that for the drawers. I always screw my backs onto my tops and bottoms first, and then put the gables on at the last. Those are 12-volt DeWalt impact driver and drill. They're great little screw guns, so they are. Nice and light. This is the Lamello Zeta P2 biscuit joiner. It's a great machine. I only bought it last year, and I should have bought it years ago. It really speeds up production, like when you're making these types of wardrobes and units. You definitely need dust extraction on a machine like this, because it just puts dust everywhere. I'm just marking out for that's the gables of the drawer unit that'll be inside the wardrobe. You'll see now in a minute. That's the faces of them. I use tensile connectors and biscuits they're called, I think, biscos. See, they'll just clip in. So you'll see here now, I'm just cutting the angle for the shoe rack that you'll see. I like to just use the plunge saw to cut it, because it's easier than moving the panel saw, the angle of the blade. So I just do my cut with the plunge saw and then rip it to its final size on the panel saw. It's the TS55 Festool plunge saw. It's a great saw. I had the Makita before that, but I much prefer this saw. That's my sister's dog. She's going to be rudely awakened now as soon as the saw goes on. I like to keep matting around machines that I use on a daily basis, like the panel saw and my like sort of workbench where I put stuff together. Just it's easier on the feet at the end of the day. That's just an offcut. I have a little bin the far side of the panel, so I throw all my offcuts and I can bring it up to the house for lighting fire and that. I'm just squaring off the shoe rack, the angle I'm after cutting on it. I like to oversize all my like components of the wardrobe, and then cut them to their final size after you do like an angle cut. Just make sure that everything's square. This is just the little stops to stop your shoes sliding on the shoe rack. I used to like screw my shoe racks together, but once I bought the Lamello biscuit joiner, I just biscuit join them, and like that I've never had a call back there. It's great. Like they clamp together with the tensile connectors. Start putting together the second unit. Sometimes put it together on the mat there, just as, like I said, it's easier on the feet and the knees. I use SketchUp to design all my units, so I do. So when you're putting in like an angle shoe rack like that, it's a 22.5 degree angle. You can always just check your measurements on the laptop and through SketchUp. It just leaves it a lot handier for you. These units were quite big, so they were bigger than my usual sizes that I offer customers, but they were for myself, so I can make them whatever size I wanted. So I went slightly higher than the standard. Here's the MDF I had to get off a different supplier. I cut my doors off camera, and I'm just edging the edges of my, always edge all my doors. Try and always edge MRMDF, it just saves you sanding when you're spraying. I should have done this earlier. I'm just cutting my lights, my LED strip lights for the gables. I usually put them in at the start when I first cut my gables, but I just completely forgot. So it leaves it a bit awkward when you're trying to get the lights in afterwards, like you see now, but I got there in the end. These are lights from company in Ireland, new style lights. They're a great light, so they are. I used to buy my lights from Hafel, but they just got awful expensive during COVID, so they did. Here I'm just leveling the cabinets. I always level all my wardrobes and cabinets in the workshop and literally make the unit from start to finish. That way you've everything sort of pre-put together, and that means when you go on site, you put the screws back into the same holes. You're not pre-drilling or anything. You're just driving the screws home basically. It costs an extra bit of time in the workshop, but it saves a lot of time in customers' houses. I find the less time you're in a customer's house, the better. So this unit is going to be like a face frame type unit, so I'm just measuring everything here, making sure I'm at my 19 mil because my doors are 18 mil, and I always leave 1 mil extra for adjustment on the doors. Again, this is time consuming, but it leaves it a lot easier when you go on site. So here's a pull down hanging rail I'm installing here now. They're quite handy, so they're very easily put together as well. I have a template made. I buy the same one every time, so I just have a template that I can pre-drill the holes and just screw it in. This trouser rack rail is quite awkward to fit by yourself. If you're going to do it, your best maybe doing it when you have the trouser rail upside down before you put the unit together, because you're screwing up above your head. It's a bit awkward to get everything measured out properly. I should make a jig for that. Here I'm just drilling out for the hinges for the doors on the hinge bore. I mark out my gables on my wardrobes where the hinges are going to cover the screws, so you don't see any screws. This is the trim for the doors. I always cut my trim 10 mil oversized, so that if there's any like splits or anything in the end of the trim, at least you've got 5 mil either side you can afford to cut off. So what I do is I cut them all 10 mil oversized first, and then I come back and I cut all my miters. I usually cut the left hand side miters all in the one go, and then I measure to my final size and cut the right hand side miter. For sticking the trim on the doors as well, you see a lot of guys using wood glue and pin nailer and stuff, but I genuinely don't think there's any need for it. I use no nonsense miter bond from Screwfix, and it's always worked for me, so it has. When you put wood glue on MDF, you run the risk of it actually twisting the door and warping it. So here I'm just clamping the doors together to make sure they're flush with each other, top and bottom. And then I start trimming out the doors to the design I designed on SketchUp. I use actual type on wood glue at the actual miters themselves, but the lengths of the timber I always just use miter bond. I wasn't sure about this design for my doors when I seen them done here, but once they were sprayed, I was happy with how they turned out. I always try and keep my margins nice and sharp so that it's just a better product overall. Like here I'm just taking basically the sharp edges off the edges of the doors, and all the MDF just looks much nicer when it's sprayed up. Just literally like a 2 mil radius round over cutter. Those little palm routers are a great job. I always just sand all my doors and all my MDF, usually at with 180 grit sandpaper, and then I use Merca Goldflex sandpaper for any trim or any sort of mouldings that obviously the sander can't do. There was an awful lot of sanding in these doors, I have to say. Here I'm just installing the sensors for the lights. I use Hafele sensors, so I do. Just a 12mm hole on it, it's a friction fit, you just push it in. Here I'm just screwing the drivers to the tops of the units. These lights do need an awful lot of wattage, so they do. I was on my own today, or that day, so I had to load the units by myself, which it's never simple. Here, just getting set up for spraying, so I use a Graco GX21, I think it is, airless sprayer. Just cleaning off any surface dust. I use a Sherwin-Williams primer, AC primer, so I do. And I use Color Trends WB50 for the top coats usually, unless the customer wants something else. Some people want like a PC or an AC paint, but I like the Color Trend products. I like to cross spray my primer on. Just get my surface nice and flat for the top coat. Once I get my top or my primer done, I sand everything, just a very light sand with 320 grit sandpaper, just to take any rough spots off. But usually when you do the two coats, the two cross sprayed coats, it ends up fine, so it does. So this is what just after the second top coat looked like. When it dries, it'll be 10% sheen finish on them usually. Here I am trying to get the second unit in. I forgot to record the first unit going in. I was tight for space here, so it's usually not as awkward as I'm making it look. And again, this is for myself, so I don't have a helper with me today. I always set up a laser level just to get the units leveled, and then I'll just fine tune the leveling with a spirit level. I usually would leave a 150mm kickboard, but like I said, I was making this for myself, so I ended up going with a 100mm kickboard, so it was hard to actually get my hand in and level the feet up. Just double checking everything there is plumb. Here I'm just putting on the U-Scribe jig brackets for scribing to the wall. They're great products, so they are. Check out U-Scribe jig on Instagram. I always try and do all my scribes all at once, so there was 4 scribes here in total. This is the kickboard. This is a new saw I got last week. It's the Festool CSC6 cordless table saw. It's very light and I've been using it all week. It's been great. I like to cut my scribes roughly with the table saw and then finish them with a hand plane. I always try and protect the customer's floor with those Dusty Boys mats. Sorry about the lighting in this clip here. This was about 11 o'clock at night. I had all the lights in the room on, but I couldn't see anything hardly. I'm just screwing on the drawer runners here. I use undermount drawer runners. I swap brands 100 times to have them. At the minute I'm using their REJS undermount drawer runners I buy from Amazon. They're a good drawer runner and there's lots of adjustment on them. This the next morning I started fitting the drawer fronts. I like to leave a 30mm space in between my drawer fronts. It just saves customers buying handles extra cost, you know. Unless they want handles, like I would put in a full drawer front with a 3mm margin the whole way around. Here I'm just going to get the lights wired up and get everything connected. I had left power out in the ceiling a couple of months back, so it was very easy just to get them wired up, powered. The lights make a huge difference. It literally it changes the color of the wood and everything just when you see it all illuminated like that. They aren't cheap, but they're very nice when you see them finished. Just double checking the kickboard there. I use the lamello, the tensile connectors to fit all my scribes to the wall. They clamp in together, and if you ever need to take them off, you can pull them off with a bit of force without breaking anything. Less screw holes and stuff. This was the cornice trim I went with. This was actually quite awkward to actually get it scribed because I already had my scribes on at either side. So it took a bit of messing, but I got there in the end. I always tape my chipboard MFC with a masking tape. I'm using this. I think it's called Q1 masking tape. It's a low adhesive, so you can actually use it on painted material and it doesn't pull the paint off. I had to scribe this a couple of times. It was just awkward, but you're better leaving stuff on. You can always take more off. You can never add obviously timber back on. Just miter bonding on the corner there. I'm just hoovering out any dust. Clean out the unit. Put on my screw cover caps. Usually I would have the doors installed before I come to site, but because it was my own unit, I just wanted to get the unit out of the shed and get the doors sprayed after I got the units in. So I had to screw the doors in on site. It didn't take that much longer. I'm just adjusting the doors to get all the trim line up, the margins lining up nicely. I am still waiting on the handles, so I am. So I'll hopefully get them on this week. So this is the finished product. Mine is the handles, obviously. The lights come on as you open the doors with the sensor. There's your trouser rail. Your ornament drawers, they're all soft close drawer runners as well, so they get to a certain point and they pull close by themselves. Same as the pull down robe rail. Doors are all soft close hinges as well from Blum. So that's it. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thanks very much.